Hey everyone, welcome to the Startup Dunedin podcast. I had the absolute pleasure today of sitting down with Julia Ann, the founder of Look After Me, New Zealand's premium homestay network. There was a lot of interesting topics in this conversation. For one, Look After Me holds a social media record, having over 20 billion social media mentions from one event that happened to them a few years ago. And we also talked about the shared access economy and why that's important to New Zealand, as well as raising capital in New Zealand and a whole lot of other topics. So if any of those interest you, tune into the show. Welcome to the show. It's been a while coming. We've been looking forward to having you on. How's it going?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, Angus. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Cool. The first question that we ask any founder that comes on the show is obviously to do a little bit of an elevator pitch on their business. So would you mind elevator pitching Look After Me?
Sure. Look After Me is a homestay network. So we help homeowners rent out their spare space. And we do that with our defined standards. So all of our homeowners, it's all hosted accommodation. So they only have 1, 2 or 3 guest rooms. And we only have one group of guests at a time to really uphold our looking after you brand promise. And we've served about 17,500 guest nights around New Zealand. We launched in 2011 ahead of the Rugby World Cup. And we've helped all major events and just really love looking after people.
Fantastic. And you guys describe yourselves as a digital hotel. Do you mind elaborating a little bit on what that means?
Yeah, well, we all know that hotels are great because they provide very clean, very comfortable, very safe accommodation. And we also love new concepts like Airbnb because they're fun, they're cheaper, and you get to connect with the locals. So we've pretty much combined the two concepts together. So it's the hotel and safety and the vetting of the hotel together with the shared access economy, and we've brought the two concepts together and we sit right in the middle, and we offer. So our digital hotel is providing accommodation. We've even got our own merchandise and dressing gowns and
cool.
And we help our homeowners really set up a unified brand right around the country.
That's awesome. And so for yourself with Look After Me, was there, I guess, a moment of frustration or something where you went, aha, this is going to be the business I'm going to start? How did you end up coming up with the idea?
Yeah, strange story. So I was a plant molecular biologist and I actually had, it was a vision, but it was inside my head, and I saw a world and I saw people holding hands, and I was sort of in a daydream kind of state, and I just said, I want to start a homestay network, which was a really unusual thing for a plant molecular biologist to say. I knew nothing about tourism, about e-commerce, about running a business. I knew nothing about nothing, but I felt so compelled to start this homestay network, and the idea followed me around, and I took myself to business school for a year to study how to run a business, and just launched it. With the Rugby World Cup, I mentioned it to some guys in Wellington, Web Fund, and they said, hey, look, you're launching in 3 weeks. And I went, woo! And I left my job and launched, which was really, really brave and ambitious because I was a single mum with no safety net.
So is that 3 weeks after having the idea, having this sort of epiphany moment?
I had the idea in 2009.
Yeah.
Then I had roughly...
A year of business school.
Yeah, a year of business school,
Okay.
2010. And at the beginning of 2010, I was wondering how I'm going to get going.
Yeah.
And we actually ended up launching in July that year. So, yeah, it was a little ways after. But I only met the guys in Wellington on the 19th of May, and we launched on the 21st of July.
And so you guys have obviously been around for a while now. Would you still describe yourself as early stage?
Yes, I would. I would. I think that we've taken the long, slow route through our startup journey, and that's probably because of my own learning and learning how to actually run a business. I think if we look at the stats, 98% of businesses actually do fail within the first couple of years. So to be 8 years in and still braving it and innovating is, I think is a testament to the strength of our team and our idea in the marketplace.
Definitely. And we were speaking about earlier, just before we started on the show, obviously your pitch has changed quite a bit over time. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, from, I guess, what you thought you were at the start to who you are now, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah, so we started as a simple homestay network, and that is the core of our business. But as we've evolved and grown and changed, we've recently innovated in what we're upgrading the company to becoming a tours, events and accommodation company. And what that means is that Look After Me will offer tours and events, particularly around the creative pursuits. Okay. We realised that when we looked at our 17,500 guests, most of them were middle-aged women, baby boomer women, retired women, mostly travelling by themselves. And when we thought, well, how can we serve our favourite kind of customer better? And as we got to know our customers, we realised that a lot of them have the creative endeavours in their passion. You know, they many of them want to write a book, many of them want to paint a picture or, do a project with yarn and wool or throw a pot or a plate. And so we're developing a series of events around words, paint, clay and yarn here in Dunedin, and it brings visitors from out of town to Dunedin. And once we've established those 4 signature events, we can then take that idea to any destination because it's a formula, it's a building, it's a package tour, and so we'll establish it in Dunedin and then in the North Island in 2020. Sure. So and then from there we can take that idea to any creative city, San Francisco, Madrid, London. Sure. It's an idea where we can take and borrow from New Zealand's world #1 status of looking after people and our hospitality, and we can actually take that elsewhere. So.
Awesome. So what made you choose Dunedin as, I guess, the testing ground for something like that?
I think Dunedin, after living here for 3 years, the creative communities are very cohesive. They're a real power force, and they... I also was inspired to consider this idea because I did a contract for the Dunedin City Council on Arts Day, where I looked at the economics as well as the feasibility, did a feasibility study that to see how the creative communities, artists, jewellers, makers of anything could benefit from economic growth. And this idea, I sort of raised the idea, and then and so it's a combination of putting the best of what Look After Me already offers together with a new idea about imagining events and creative journeys for our own customers and for people who might enjoy something like that.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of looking to the future of what that would actually look like, you'll have a set time period where you have those series of events. Someone will buy a package where they get their accommodation and obviously their ticket or whatever it is to that event.
Correct.
As well included in that?
Yes, that's right. It is a package deal. So the way that we're designing the events, there'll be what we call VIP tours. Initially, the VIP tours will just be putting on a bus from Christchurch to Dunedin in the first instance, and then there might be between 15 and 45 VIPs from out of town, and that's where they're bringing revenue to Dunedin. Yeah. And they'll come for the purpose of, say, doing a roadmap to write a book, but they'll join in with a community of Dunedin writers, and so it brings the writers from one city and integrates them with our writing community. And I think Dunedin's unique status as the UNESCO City of Literature is a really... it means that the city is ready for events like this.
Yeah, totally. I was going to comment on that actually, the community building aspect. If you can build a community around a product, and obviously then they all become, champions for that product. That's a great thing, right?
Well, we hope so. And I also really love the idea that people on a creative journey, it can be a solo activity. Whereas, we teach people, we give them a roadmap of how to write their book and take them through the how to get to each milestone. And yes, they'll have a week with us here in Dunedin or at any one of our locations, but then from that cohort we'll form a Facebook community, and then there'll be lots of interaction in that week, and from there that cohort, there'll be a marketplace where they can sell their books to that, and so they can get feedback and be connected with editors and publishers and people involved in that creative journey, and it's it's ongoing because the community then becomes a force. And then, well, if you go to the writing events called the Great Write-In, and so if you come to one of our Great Write-Ins, maybe a year later you could we'll have we'll hold them annually for that cohort, and it builds a community and
it
so
continues
on
past just that initial trip.
Definitely,
yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I feel like we need something similar for entrepreneurs, right? Are you commenting that it's
definitely about the community? And if you look at our brand, our brand is all about looking after me, looking after people, and our philosophy is very much looking after the head, looking after the hands, and looking after the heart. And so, yes, we are very much the core business is looking after how people, sleep and eat, and travel. But we've realised that our market position, and because of our target market is mature middle-aged women and baby retired, there is we can do better than that. It helps differentiate our brand on some of the softest stuff that people really are craving, and we all just crave to be understood.
Totally. I was going to comment on that as well, actually. Doing a little bit of a dive on your website, you mentioned that kindness is one of the founding principles of Look After Me. One of the interesting things for myself is when you look at brand values, how do you go about scaling them? And I guess particularly for yourself, when you've got so many different people involved with delivering your service, how do you make sure that those brand values, I guess, carry throughout everything that you do? Yeah,
great question. So I guess our name, Look After Me, attracts people who buy into our brand values around trust and kindness and care and looking after people. Most of our hosts are retired or semi-retired couples or singles whose children have left home, and they've got this social capital. They just seem to love looking after people. So we vet and visit all of our hosts. So we have turned people away if we didn't feel that they really understood the kind of quality of care that we're expecting from them. So we have guidelines around protocols, meet and greet and breakfast and rooms and everything to help keep those standards really high.
Really high. Cool. And what sort of service, I guess, do you provide to the host in return? Obviously, you showed us the branded things that you provide them.
So we have a host care director, and we have protocols for onboarding. So that includes a visit and photographs, making sure that they've got the host care guide and that they understand. We have tips and tricks, and we advise they to have a pretend booking, if that someone pretends to stay and then does a bit of a dummy run. And then we've also got our host evenings where we invite people along and we offer advice, and it's just a wraparound service really.
So definitely a lot more depth than something like Airbnb, where anybody can kind of just sign up and throw something out there. Yeah,
and I think their tagline is "We let anyone rent anything."
Yeah,
and that of course means they have access to a global marketplace. But in a busy global marketplace, but there is plenty of room for a boutique New Zealand brand.
Totally.
Really leveraging off the power of New Zealand's brand of hospitality. We're the only company that's really doing that.
So speaking of global brands, you mentioned before that obviously baby boomers are a target market, but you also are probably known by a few people in Korea and China. Is that right?
Yes. So back in 2014, when I was really understanding the tourism industry, I got to know the tourism industry through John Key and then the industry itself. And so I went and made it my job to introduce myself to anyone in Tourism New Zealand and Auckland, and telling them about Homestay. At that time it was particularly around the cycle trails, but Tourism New Zealand got approached by a TV show called Daddy, Where Are We Going? And it's a very popular TV show produced by NBC in Korea. And because I'd just been there, I was the girl on the Homestay hot dial. They said, can you help by hosting 5 celebrity daddies and their 5 celebrity kids for a reality TV show where every week they have to do something different. And that particular week they had to travel to New Zealand and stay with a family. So I was the lead coordinator for that, organising the homestay families. But at the last minute, like the day before, one of our families got the underbug. Everyone was and it was terrible. So myself and my partner and my little girl, who was 7 at the time, stepped in. And so we had this rather entertaining experience of being on reality TV. And my daughter was amazing. Who knew? She was just a natural. She blew us all away because it was all around. It was very kid-centric, and she was just amazing in front of the camera. So that was watched by 20 million people. And that was quite modest. And so while I was wrapping up the show, I talked to the producer and I said, look, how would we go about inviting the sister show, which is the Chinese version of the show, also called Daddy, Where Are We Going? How could we, invite them to New Zealand? And he said, oh, very expensive. I said, oh, yeah. How much? He said, 1 million. I said, 1 million, okay. So I inadvertently negotiated a deal to bring the TV show to New Zealand. So what I still had to do, together with Tourism New Zealand, Destination Rotorua and Destination Waikato, was write a proposal why they would bring the Chinese version, and I based it in Rotorua, so there would be the steaming mud and the Māori culture, together with the lakes and the forest and lots of activities for the celebrity families to do. And we were successful against Singapore, South Africa, and Queensland, I think. So, but New Zealand got the deal, and then I was appointed as project lead for that. And when I saw I had to do the budget, and they said you have to make those numbers, add up to $1 million. And I thought, so I never really revealed my play of that, but I thought that if we could bring a TV show like that to New Zealand, it would really help the economy. The TV shows were enormously popular. Okay. They were watched on air at the time by 404 million people, and then by the time they went out to satellite, they were watched by 1.3 billion people through all the Chinese-speaking countries, and we actually broke a social media record. It is still the most talked about thing on the planet, with 20 billion mentions. It makes the royal weddings and the FIFA World Cup look absolutely puny. So I was very humbled to be project lead for a project like that, and I really got to see, and it was all around the homestay concept, because what happened was those Chinese celebrities stayed with real Kiwi families, and it showcased how Kiwis live and play, and subsequently revenue from Chinese visitors into Rotorua increased by 61% the following year.
Wow.
Yeah, 61% is a big number. And the number of visitors to New Zealand increased by 56%. So I have, although we didn't do the surveys, it's indicative that the show's
had
probably an influence, because they've subsequently gone back to a more modest level. So there were certainly quite big spikes in 2015 and 16, we believe, as a result of the show, which was the intention.
Yeah, of course. So how far into your journey with Look After Me did you become the project lead on this?
It was, so we launched in 2011. It was 2014 and 15.
So 3 years in.
Yeah, just 3 years in. And like any startup, I was always open to doing a little bit of contract work here and there. And I wasn't actively seeking it, but when they invited me to become the project leader, I realised that I did have the skills, because from my science background, I was used to running big, science programs of millions of dollars and 25 people. The project for Daddy China, or Daddy Where Are We Going, it was about 500 people involved. Yeah, so it was a big project. So 200.
So a lot of coordination between different parties.
Yeah, and all the tourism operators, the families, and also the destination marketing agencies, Tourism New Zealand, and also the film crews and respective. So
okay.
it's a big.
So is that the biggest project that you've had to? organised, right?
Yeah.
But you felt the skills that you had from your science background transferred really well.
Very
across.
much, as project lead, my job, it was management, but communications is absolutely critical. So making sure that the directors and the executive producers and all the recce's, the location, it was a lot of lining up, but really good support from the film production teams who are very experienced in that. So yeah,
fantastic. Was there anything that didn't go right during it? Any sort of something you could take away as a learning, or?
No, it was great. Big highlights was being at Hobbiton, and we did filming at Hobbiton, and the All Blacks were there. So for me, that was a personal buzz.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it was great.
So obviously, some great exposure for businesses like Look After Me through something like that.
Yes.
Did you choose to pursue the Chinese Korean market any sort of further?
I did attempt it, but I was really behind the 8 ball, I think. I don't think I had full awareness of what it really took to develop I didn't develop a pipeline well enough, and I did develop some brochures and things, but I didn't do the digital marketing pipeline well enough to connect Homestay in New Zealand to our brand. And then so that was really great learning, because you think with all that exposure, Look After Me would have just taken off. But it's a great example of how, if you are ill prepared, you can just lose that opportunity. And I so that's probably the big learning, is that I guess I was a little naive. I thought, business will just flow in. But of course, because of the language barrier and because of the payment system and the way that Chinese social media works on Weibo and WeChat, and they don't have YouTube or Facebook or Visa. So all of the mechanisms that we are used to dealing with in our digital marketing, I just wasn't savvy enough or quick enough. And actually, at the end of the day, our company and the way our hosts aren't really set up for looking after families and young families.
Yeah, sure.
It's just not our target market. And so it was a great experience, and it's great for telling stories like this.
Totally.
And part of my entrepreneurial journey. But it didn't really make the company.
No.
It made me realise, who we like looking after.
And who that target audience is.
Yeah, and it is really, the mums and the aunties, and yeah.
So looking at who your target customers are, how did you go about getting your first few customers on board, back in those very early stages?
Yeah. I was really fortunate to be quite involved in a community service organisation called Zonta.
Okay.
Now, Zonta is a bit like Lions or Rotary, but it's for women professionals. And when I did my market research, I realised that in this fairly small group, there's only about 35, but many of them had really nice homes and beautiful guest rooms, and it kind of sparked the idea. And they, like 5 or 6 of them, immediately came on as hosts in Rotorua.
Fantastic.
As a way to support me and my business venture, and because they could see that they could earn money, and the Rugby World Cup was coming, and so that, getting that early traction was actually really lucky. But Trade Me launched with 20 items to sell. We had 5 rooms.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
So obviously that's from the perspective of someone that's listing their home on there. What did, I guess, advertising to prospective tenants look like?
Yeah. So I did a publicity stunt. I turned up in my pyjamas at an event which was broadcast on national TV. So perhaps this started my foray into media. So my friend, she said, you should do a pyjama stunt. And she said, I did this thing where I was in my pyjamas. And I thought, that's so good. She said, you should do the same. And I went, okay. So it was midwinter, and it was Tamati Coffee was doing the Rugby World Cup roadshow, where he was he was the weatherman,
Okay.
and he was going around different locations in New Zealand. And the exact day that I happened to choose for launch, which is 100 days out from the Rugby World Cup, happened to fall on the 21st of July. And when I opened the local newspaper, I realised that was the same day that the roadshow was going to be in Rotorua. So I got up and we blew up a double mattress and we plonked it right in the foot traffic with all our brochures, and I was in my pyjamas. And so I got, because I was in bright pink stripy zebra stripe pyjamas, I really stood out in a pink dressing gown. And so, we've got this, our launch video is quite funny.
That's awesome.
So from that, that then the photo of me in my pink striped pyjamas went in Christchurch Press, it went in the Dominion, it went in the Auckland Herald, it went everywhere. So I just had a really lucky PR break to help get those first guests.
Yeah, PR is really important at the early stages. It can be one of the easiest ways to start to get people through the gate.
Yeah.
So you've got this great thing of, yes, you get a lot of reach, but you also get that badge of approval from being in a newspaper.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that still stands in terms of brand equity these days.
Very much, and it's always been an important part of our marketing strategy. I think we've had 72 articles around the company over the years. Yeah.
So how does that happen? Is that something that you guys are seeking and planning for? Or
and also one of my natural talents is that I'm a writer. So I have a 100% track record, so every story I've ever pitched has been published, which I think is quite unusual. But I seem to have an eye and an ear for an angle.
Okay.
Like I can pick an angle and go, oh, the readers of that particular magazine might enjoy that angle. Or relationships are really important in media.
Definitely. So when you're writing an article for a particular publication, do you go through and read some of the past work that they've done to see what they normally push?
Absolutely, definitely you have to do research. And also it's about the readership and the audience and understanding, from an editor's point of view, what's going to make good reading for, it's all about their reader. That's all they care about, and as they should, and that's what we should too. So an article in the AA magazine will be different from the next magazine, will be different from the Otago Daily Times.
Okay, interesting. So obviously, big PR break, immediately saw a lot more traffic on the website and consequently those 5 rooms being filled, or was it sort of a bit of a spike there and then it took a while for things to kick
definitely
in?
A spike and then it took a while. And I think, again, a lot of naivety, will build it and they will come.
Yeah.
That is so not true. I'm sure you've heard that saying as well. I think when you have got a business that purely relies on web traffic, it's not just having one piece of bait in the water. It's a lot of pieces of bait. So, the wheel of content does need to include PR, but, proper digital marketing strategies. And it's taken us a while to be very clear about what the message is, what medium would be best to use, and also the technology suite that drives the infrastructure is not to be underestimated. Like building that tech stack is a lot of our know-how.
So what does your tech stack look like at the moment?
So we subscribe to the one avatar, like who being really clear who you're talking to. So for our great writing, it'll be people see. So it's time to write that book is our key message. It's time to write that book because 85% of people say, oh, I want to write a book one day. So our key message, it's actually time to write that book. And then we use a lead magnet where a little piece of information, here's some ideas of how to write a roadmap to get the book done and offer a little piece of advice. And then, but in order to do that, they submit an email address and then we can then send them more other valuable information. And then, by the way, we've got an event coming up in 2020. We're going to bring writers from out of town, and then we offer our homestay and play package.
Cool.
So it's evolved.
And so when you first I guess we're conceiving that, did you sit down and write out your full customer journey and then plan the content to each of those stages? Or has it been more that you started and then found we need this bit here and we need that bit there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think as we've evolved and matured as a company, so our recent upgrade absolutely wrote out our customer journey, and we've understood which pieces of software that we need to deliver, with the Facebook and then the autorespond, the landing page and the autoresponders. Back in the day, it was completely, we didn't really know. We just thought, well, everyone needs accommodation, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't really understand how important it was to target that message in a way that really hooks people, so hook, story, offer. So I guess we've really matured in the way we're marketing ourselves and understanding who we are and who are the customers we serve. Was
that something that happened over time, or
Definitely.
Was there a particular moment where you were like, oh, we need to focus on one particular person? Was there a conversation? So we see it quite a lot at Startups in Dunedin where someone will be like, well, it's anybody that owns a house, or it's anybody that eats food, or it's anybody that breathes air.
Yeah.
And getting really narrow and getting people to realise that they should be narrow can be a difficult thing to do.
It was difficult for us too, and it doesn't feel natural, but it's around having a beachhead strategy and being very clear. So, yeah, look, we've been in the marketplace 8 years, and it's really been only in the last 2 or 3 months where we've had the idea around the Great Write-In and the Heart Here's Art events and the clay, throw that plate event. So it became a necessity because I was invited as one of the special guests for an event last week in Queenstown. It was called the Tourism Tech event, and it was the inaugural meeting of the Wakatipu and Wanaka Investment Network. And I went along, and as I was preparing, this is a few months ago, I realised that our revenue model was really weak. Okay. And I thought, gosh, we're relying on just a commission from guest nights and a little bit of an activation fee for our new hosts, and it wasn't really strong. And I started looking at other revenue models, discovered the Disneyland model around owning the whole economy, and we realised that we needed to be a lot clearer. And I think with some of the books I've been reading, Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels, Grace Lever, The Doers Inner Circle for female entrepreneurs. So I've been really quite heavily influenced by the reading I've done from other entrepreneurs who have built successful online businesses in a number of industries. So, being a lot clearer made more sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you mind repeating those 2 books for anyone listening at home?
Yeah, certainly. So Russell Brunson, he has a book called .com Secrets and a second book called Expert Secrets. Okay. And he has a company called ClickFunnels, which helps entrepreneurs like me build landing pages that convert bookings. And one of his followers, Grace Lever, is an Australian woman who's helped 50,000 female entrepreneurs build successful online businesses. So I know that the technology works, but it's all around understanding who you are, really understanding them. And we have now 8 years of deep understanding of women in New Zealand who like to travel.
So do you do any, I guess, like formal customer interviewing with people, or have you more gathered the information just through interacting with people at different parts of that sales process?
It's both. We've those guest testimonials we have gathered over the years, but we have also done some formal interviewing and surveys around what people want, and we're strong messaging around craving community, like-minded people, shared passion for interests. We had a lot of people saying they want wine and cheese events, but it's a very crowded marketplace, so we will offer wine and cheese at our events, but it won't be the main
focus
reason.
of the event. Yeah, sure. Yeah, somebody was telling me about the wine and painting events recently.
Yes, Paint Vine, yeah.
Yeah, have you been to one of those before?
No, I haven't, but I may go to one in Dunedin, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about going to the one down here. It seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Cool. So in terms of all of your different marketing channels, you mentioned Facebook. Has your most successful channel been what you expected, and what does your kind of spread look like at the moment?
Yeah, so Facebook is successful for us because we can finally tune and target those those ads and around the message, both, because it's a two-sided marketplace. So we're looking for hosts and we're looking for guests. So different ads, different message, but it means that you can really target. So for example, when we help with other events like Wearable Arts in Wellington, Field Days near Hamilton, WOMAD in New Plymouth, we can use Facebook to target homeowners who might have 1, 2 or 3 spare rooms and be really targeted around that messaging. So it's really changed the game for us.
And is that the main channel that you're using?
Yeah, pretty much, because LinkedIn is, business to business, and we are really, B2C. We're really looking after looking for customers in the marketplace,
for sure.
And that's where they are.
I was going to say, in your demographic is very much on
So
Facebook.
they're not on Instagram and they're not on Twitter.
Yeah.
They are the grandmas and the aunties who love looking at pictures of their grandies and their and so they're there. Yeah.
Did you try any other channels before, I guess, deciding that Facebook was it?
Yes, we've tried Google Ads.
Okay.
I have sought advice. It is quite expensive and you can drop a lot of money in the big black hole. And I'm really interested in click-through rates and looking at cost of acquisition and making good business decisions around what makes sense and what's tried and true.
Sure. And that's where Facebook comes into play. Very cool. So obviously, being in a startup, that can be pretty stressful at times. Has there been any big frustrations for you over the last couple of years personally?
Oh, dear, yes. So I've written, my first book is called Secret Diary of an Entrepreneur, and it's very much around the personal journey of, running out of money, not once, not twice, but probably 3 times. And I think cash flow has been huge, but I've always had a fallback position because I'm a writer. I've always been able to pick up contract work for media companies or, Dunedin City Council, Otago Regional Council.
Sure.
I've always been able to, fall back on my writing career. So money, self-care is probably, which is ironic, from the founder of a company called Look After Me. I failed to look after myself and burnt myself out so badly, my brain kind of didn't work for 9 months, which was pretty scary, but I did have good insurance, but that was really, really tough, being a single mum and having the dream of building this business and realising that I'd put so much into it, I had failed to look after myself. So, big learnings around money, big learnings around over-promising and under-delivering, and times when you think, oh, I can do this, and actually not really being realistic about what we can do. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of what self-care looks like for yourself now, are there particular habits or things that you do?
Yeah. Every morning it's a meditation.
Okay.
So I use meditation as one of my major tools. And yoga 1, 2 or 3 times a week, and just at home, like a YouTube video for 15 minutes. It's not fancy. It's just getting the body moving. So making sure the mind is oiled and feeling really strong and grounded, and then moving the body, because I'm nearly 50, so I need to look after myself, and then very much around quality food and exercise. So it is really back to basics. It's water, food. It's really
all the typical things.
Yep, all the typical things. It's nothing fancy. I don't go to a gym. I just do the bare minimum. But I find if I don't do that, I can feel my stress levels
start to edge up.
And vitamins. I have a really good vitamin B product, and so nothing complicated.
Nothing
but
huge.
Just and fun. I never work on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I never work on a Sunday. It's that self-care day, and often the house, family. I've got a little daughter, and so that's when we, exploring beaches and walks and
So, in terms of the meditation side of things, do you use a particular app or a particular? Well,
I've been meditating since I was 21. I learned transcendental meditation, and so it varies. I actually do do guided meditation for productivity, guided meditation for financial abundance, guided meditation for falling asleep. Just anything I want. I just guided meditation. There is a guided meditation for everything and
just
anything.
on YouTube, yeah.
Yep, and I'm not precious about who I listen to. Abraham Hicks, Bob Proctor, Tony Robbins. All those motivational. Because it helps. Mindset really is everything, and I am determined to grow a successful, grounded company in New Zealand that is ethical, is based on really good values, and really offers a very nice service to our customers.
And that comes back to starting with yourself as well sometimes. Yeah. Awesome. So looping back into the marketing conversation, do you handle the marketing side of things for Look After Me yourself, or is that something that you've got another team member working on?
I have recently employed some people to help.
Okay.
So, but what I needed to do was have real clarity on what it is that we are selling. So moving into the creative journeys market, we are doing a wraparound service for a creative event. Our first event will actually not be one that we own. It's called Wild Imaginings. It's already here in Dunedin. It's the children authors and illustrators Hui, so it's a national event, and so we're doing homestay and play packages as a way to test out the new upgrade, make sure that we can actually deliver home. We've just have 50. There's about 300 delegates coming.
Yep.
Even if we just look after 50 of them, but do a really good job. So in terms of the marketing, I'm fairly directive around what we're saying, not as directive on how it gets done. Got a marvellous team member, one of the top digital marketing students out of the university. So as part of my role, I've just been doing some guest lecturing at the university on the shared access economy, and happened to mention that I might be looking for some people, and some great, basically got the top students. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I'm always interested in what and at what stage entrepreneurs start to hand off certain parts of their company to other people, which can be quite a difficult process. I was talking to Nigel Bamford about it the other week, and he basically said for anything that makes his phone ring, he'll hire someone to take care of that job to start to reduce the number of times that his phone rings. And now he says he's lucky if it rings once or twice a day. But that's how he handled that process. So we approached it by introducing a microjob program. Okay.
So our microjobs are all custom built jobs on contract. So all of our contractors work between 4 and 10 hours a week. So no one is full-time apart from myself and the company. And that way I can bring in digital marketing, editing, videography, and customer relationships, guest care, host care. Everyone is on a microjob that I have designed for them. Okay. So in recruiting people, I really look at their CV, really look at their skill set, and really understand where they're best aligned to help. So when they're working for the company, they are working on their best asset, and it means that it gets stuff done and it keeps costs down.
Yeah, totally. So when you say microjob, is that contractor work or are they an employee?
They're all contractors.
They're all contractors, okay.
3 of them are students, so that works in really well. So a lot of them really enjoy the fact that they can work from home. So I try and meet with all of my contractors every single week.
Okay, right.
So that we're being fairly directive on what needs to be done. And then we have a team meeting about once a week.
And do you come in person and meet, or do you use Zoom?
So for the team meeting, we all
meet
come in
person.
Yep. For the one-on-one meetings, it depends.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you find those 3 students? Obviously, as you said, you got some through being a guest lecturer. The other 2, was there a particular program or?
One of them was from my writers group. She came along because I'm in a writers group, so I'm with my books, and she's just said, I'm really looking for a job. And I kind of looked at her, and I've known her for like 3 years, and I said, really? I said, send me your CV. Turns out she's she's got a rock star CV, and she has, she is a writer, but she's done lots of podcasts and blogs and digital marketing and, social media marketing for lots of other companies for like about 7 years as a freelancer. So she's our funnel builder, and I crafted a job for her, and she's what we call our keyboard warrior. Okay. So anything to do with tech and putting tech together, tech stack, investigating, communication, software, all our software stack. She's
all across that.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's the best thing about working with students?
The energy, the passion, and I really love that it's no hierarchy with our team. It's just we're all, we've got people who are in their 20s and people in their 60s, and everybody feels that they can have an idea and say something. So it doesn't matter that they're just at the beginning of their career, because we're very customer centric. It's all about the customer and customer care. So all ideas can come to the table. So
that's great. That can be a difficult team culture to create, right? It's you'll see in a lot of organisations, particularly bigger ones and more corporate, it can be difficult to step forward and share what you think. Was that something that came from like an effort that you thought about and you were like, I'm going to make sure that our team is like this, or was it more just from what the ethos and the value of the companies were from the start?
It's both. So my personal experience has been as a manager. So in my science career, I was a scientist for a couple of years, but I immediately was elevated to a leadership role. So I had quite big teams, between 15 and 25 people, and I learned that the best way to lead was almost from behind. You lead as, including people, and all of my scientists in the team were smarter than me in that particular regard. So it became a personal leadership style where I would give a little bit of direction, but the how would always come from the people. It's just something I've been doing for 20 years. So it feels very natural in my own company to live by that and really, and I guess from parenting as well. That encouraging the behaviour that you want. And so when someone would have an idea, I'd go, thank you so much for contributing that idea, because I didn't think of it. And please know that I can't possibly think of everything. So, this is a team, we are a team. And, it's that.
And reinforcing that regularly.
Really reinforcing that behaviour. And like Lindsay, she came up with she loves Disneyland. Everything is she just, and it became like a conversation. Disneyland, and as I started, customer service, and then the revenue model, I'm like, you know what? We can do that. And so we've adopted the Disneyland revenue model together with the travelling circus revenue model. And so being open to those ideas has just revolutionised the business pretty much overnight.
Yeah. And then allowing people to take responsibility is really key, right? I think that's something that's coming through in what you're saying is, it doesn't matter how junior you are or whatever, if this is your responsibility and you take ownership of it, it means hopefully that they'll do a bit of a better job because they feel responsible.
Yeah, and we've also just released some shares for staff. Yeah, so
awesome.
As we're building value in the company, one of the as we're renewing people's contracts, bringing in a clause where there's X number of hours dedicated, and they actually then get a percentage share of the company, particularly for the senior staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. In terms of the wider team, so looking at mentors, is there particular people that you call when you're tossing and turning over a problem?
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have two co-directors. Okay. So both of them are tourism trained. One, has got decades of experience in tourism, so he's really good on customer service and brand, and then the other one, Colin, who joined us fairly recently, is very good on technology, systems, and so I really feel I'm quite well supported, and I guess I'm reasonably independent, and Google was my friend. Anything I've ever wanted to know, Google. Reading, I'm a prolific reader, absorber of all things entrepreneurship. I'm almost obsessed with entrepreneurship and how people like me can bring products to the marketplace and really create good value for our customers and for the country.
Have you got a favourite piece of material that you've read on entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I really love.
Or top three?
Look. His name's gone out. It's called Unfair Fight. Unfair Fight. Sam Hazeldine.
Okay.
Yeah, Queenstown-based entrepreneur who started MedRecruit. I love that book. I've read that like 3 times. Michael Hill, Think Bigger. Diane Foreman, Into the Arena. The Expert. I'm currently reading Expert Secrets, which is about people like me stepping up to become a sort of a leader and really stand for something, and I'm at the beginning of that journey, but I've come to realise that those people who've just retired, I'm getting fearful that they might not achieve what they really want, and which is to write a book or to paint a picture or to learn. And so I feel like I really want to stand up and say, so we've positioned the new brand right at the intersect of major global trends around the world is getting older, more technologically savvy. Women are the powerhouse of the travel economy. 80% of women are making the bookings, and the shared access economy, which is growing at a rate of 200% year on year, and not to be underestimated. So, just really being an enabler to help those people do what they really want to do in a way that's fun and supported, and take them on a creative journey where they can do whatever, something that really fills them up and gives them joy.
Totally.
For it's the golden, we call those our customers the goldies, our goldies, because we just really want to help them.
And there's that demographic's growing, right? There's talk to senior entrepreneurs, and it's the new careers that people will be starting even when they're post-retirement age.
Correct.
And I use quotation marks because, not everybody sees 65 as the age that they want to retire. That group is growing.
Yeah, well, according to the World Health Organization, the number of people aged 60 and over will double from 12% of the global population to about 24% by 2050. So it's not just hearsay. There's a lot of statistics around it. And so we've been doing our market research analysis for nearly a decade, and we've pitched our company right into the intersect of all these emerging forces for the greatest chance of success.
Okay. Wow. So looking at the parts of the company that you're handing to your team members, has it been difficult to give up responsibility, or is there anything that you're holding on to that you think you're probably going to need to give up in the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think it's been little by little. I am quite detail orientated, and like for the host care program, like the host care, looking after hosts is a real core part of our business. And I employed a host care director, but then was a little reluctant to give her work, and she was great. She just wrote her job description and said, right, I think this is what I need to do. I need to do this and this and this and this. Okay. And I went, yeah. And so that's made it easier to hand stuff over. But because I'm, so busy still handling, lots of the company, it's creating, I feel like I need to hand it over with a procedure already written. So I'm learning to say, here, this is how I do it. Can you have a go at it? And as you are doing it, can you write the procedure, please? Yeah. And so getting better about that.
And not having to be perfect when you give it to them.
Yeah. And just bringing in the flavour. So I'm really delighted with the way that all of the staff have stepped up, and I've been a little apologetic. I'm sorry I haven't given you that, but I didn't know how, and so there is a little bit of that awkwardness, but that has to be me taking a breath and just going, handing it over, and actually there have been a lot of surprises how well people have done.
Well, a lot of the time the type of people that you want in those first few roles aren't the type of people that need something cookie cutted for them.
Yeah.
They need to be the type of people that are going to add value.
Yes.
And a lot of that adding value is them being able to think for themselves.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess because I invented the idea and the concept. And it's not like with the shared access economy there was any real true example. So we really are pioneering this concept in New Zealand. It's not like we could, I hadn't heard of Airbnb when we started. And so it's very much making it up as we go along as best that suits the need of the customers.
So looping back to the mentors and the directors, one of the interesting things at Startup Dunedin, we often have people come in and say, I'm looking for a mentor. How did you end up having those mentors come into your life? Was it through them hearing about Look After Me and reaching out to you? What did that look like?
A lot of serendipity, actually.
Okay.
I have got a small team of shareholders, and like I just happened to be sitting in the lobby with one of my shareholders who happens to be one of the best bed and breakfast operators in Rotorua. And Mike, for example, came over and he said, what are you two doing? And Viv is like, well, I'm just, I'm a shareholder in this company. Look After Me. And he felt like the fear of missing out. Really? Oh, so you're a share, so she'd invested. And so unbeknownst to me, he quizzed her about it. What's this company? And then he approached because he thought, and so then I explained, and he loved the idea so much. And he also invested in the company. And I invited him to become a director because I realised that I didn't have a tourism background, and his credibility and skills were really able to, enforce the quality that we needed and the respect that we needed. And then Mike approached Colin. Colin had just sold a major apartment block and was ready for a new challenge. And so, it's been almost a domino effect, but it's just been slow and deliberate, one at a time. Yeah.
Okay. And talking about investment and raising capital, did you have a capital strategy that they conveniently fit into, or was that more opportunistic?
It was definitely opportunistic. I am a subscriber to a company, selling a product and becoming really, and financially independent, and to become a proper business, and rather than completely relying on the hope and dream that you might get investment. I guess I have, in saying that, I have gone along to just about every pitching competition or event in New Zealand, from in Auckland. I've pitched in Auckland, Hamilton, Rotorua, Tauranga, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, Queenstown. Right. So I have been all over the country.
To angel groups or to just
both.
Events?
Yep.
Or okay.
Yep. Angel groups, events, private. And so I have raised. I've always seemed to manage to raise just a little bit of capital just when I've needed it.
Okay.
And it's always around software and people. So people platforms are a major investment areas. People platform and promotion. Okay. So the promotion itself, you make money from that if you do it well.
If you manage to get a mattress and some pyjamas.
But really, so I've just we're down to our last, I think, 59 shares. So because we're in the middle of a raise at the moment, and so looking for expressions of interest at the moment. And I don't think we're going to need to raise capital after that. I think we'll be right after that. With the new revenue model, it's so strong, and the projections are so good. I think, and then we're looking at an eventual acquisition. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, how far in advance are you looking for when you're planning a raise, or when you're looking to raise capital? Are you planning 6 months, 8 months?
Yeah, it's definitely 6 to 8 months.
6 to 8. Okay.
Yeah. I think you do need to be realistic at how long it takes. I mean, I've certainly got much quicker, and we've got very good legal support. It's around having the, understanding the numbers and the due diligence, and knowing what investors are going to want to have a look at, so that when you are approached, or, just in Queenstown last week, that you're ready to say, yes, this is an investable company, here are annual reports, here's, the team, here's the shareholders agreement releasing the shares, so that you've got all your ducks in a row. And that's just experience, sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you're doing it.
Yeah.
And they're asking, can you show me this? And you're like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're fossicking around and go,
And
oh,
you
here we
go
go.
and
Yeah.
add bits together. Yeah, piece together what you need.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you made any obvious mistakes when you were first going through a capital raise, or anything that you would do differently now with the experience that you have?
Yeah, I think company valuation is always really tricky. Like there are 7 different models of how you can value your company. So choosing the right model and then being able to justify that is really important. So I think we've raised capital on a valuation of. No, but back in first, we raised capital on a valuation of 200,000 when it was just an idea, really, and then we raised capital on a valuation of $1 million, and then I tried to raise capital on a valuation of $3 million, but no one, for that particular round, I didn't get even any interest. So I think I may have overvalued the company.
Okay.
And then last week we went through quite a rigorous process and valued the company at $2 million, and I thought, we really did a good job. But we got to Queenstown and. The judges felt like we had undervalued our company. He said, look, this is a $50 million revenue company. I think you're way undervaluing your asset. And so we're like, so it's almost a game, because we actually went through quite a lot of rigor to go through that. And, our last capital raise valuation was $1 million. And so we felt we could justify that we had doubled the value based that we had a new team, we had a new revenue concept, we had added so much, value. And the numbers stacked up pointing to a $2 million. And then we've got someone saying, not that he was saying the company was worth 50 million.
No.
He was saying that it has the potential. And, so that kind of blew me away. And you kind of go, well, then it's subjective. So
this is why valuing a startup is so difficult, right?
Yeah.
When you've got, startups aiming for a hockey stick growth curve.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go through that process in a way that everybody's going to agree on. Everybody's going to say, yeah, that looks right.
Yeah. So I think that's, but that's the guts of it. If the valuation has to, and the offer needs to feel really real, we're looking at fairly small amounts of capital, and some of the angels are going, well, I want to invest $5 million. So I'm not really interested in a $100,000 raise or a $500,000, but we don't want to dilute our equity too much. So it's we're still in conversation as a result of last week, and not yet ready to consolidate a particular deal with one particular party while we're still having, it's about the smart money now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So when you were going through your first capital raise, did that take as long as you expected, or was it longer?
3 times longer.
3 times longer, right? Oh
my goodness, I had no idea. I just thought, this is going to be a cinch. But I did. I was fortunate to be guided very carefully through the process by Enterprise Angels, which is one of the angel groups out of Tauranga, and Bill Murphy was very gracious, and I had the NZTE partners, and we went through the capital raising program, which included all the rigour that goes into the valuation of the company based on future potential earnings. So it took me, like 3 days just to complete the Excel spreadsheet for the budgets that they required, that sort of rigour. And it was a bit, it felt really tedious, but that grounding, it's been, I recognise the benefit of it now, but at the time it felt like, really? I just want someone to, hand me some money.
Hand you the money.
Yeah. But really, as I've come to learn more about investors, they can, you really have to prove yourself, because they can leave the money in the bank and get 2% or 3% on a good day. So how do we show them that and the company's already 10x'd in value, so so the early shareholders are delighted. But by the time we go through acquisition, it should we're looking at what's the values game, what's the company valuation worth, and what is it going to sell for, and who's going to buy it and why.
So what was the total time on that process the first time you raised?
It was 9 months.
9 months?
Yeah.
I was going to say it's usually typically about 9 months.
Yeah, it was 9 months, yeah. I thought it would take 3, which is why I said 3 times, yeah.
It's not just you.
Yeah.
Most founders that come through our doors have a perception of sort of 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And all have that in the bank, and it is always 9 months.
Yeah.
And it depends how you go about it. If you can get talking to an investor 9 months before or 6 months before you go and ask them for money, becomes a lot easier when you go and ask them for money.
Yeah.
Because nobody writes you a check the first time they meet you, right?
Yeah, Colin did though.
That's true. Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah, no, I was very lucky with that particular investment, and it's been this, that's really the smartest money. He's been wonderful.
Fantastic. So what was the number of groups, or the number of, I guess the better way of putting that is, what was the number of pitches you had to do that first time you were raising before you could close your round?
Oh, I think I probably would have done about 8 or 9 pitches.
8 or 9.
Yeah. And yeah.
And a bit of travel involved as well?
Yeah, a bit of travel, yeah. I actually have never raised capital through any of the angel networks. Okay. Even though I've pitched to Enterprise Angels, I didn't, and they had a special event, I did get $10,000, but it wasn't through the actual process. It was actually turned out it was a gift from someone who saw the potential in our company, and so that was a very generous surprise.
Can't ask for much better as a startup.
But actually through all of my shareholders have come on as individuals, and so every one of them I've had individual conversations with, and they've all invested. I've only had 2 conversations with individuals who chose for various reasons not to invest. So my luck has certainly been 1-to-1, looking at the value occasion, and then when they see who else is on the rest of the team, they feel like, we better get in. So I haven't been able to raise capital at all in New Zealand. Through an angel, I know. And it's not through want of trying. And I'm a reasonable presenter, and we've got a reasonable product, and we've got great traction.
I was going to say, you usually get quite good feedback on your pitches. I think it was, you're talking about this on Not a Real Job, that podcast that you went on. First time you pitched, you got some amazing feedback from the judges or the people in the room. It's bizarre that angel groups haven't jumped on board.
Yep, it is just the way it is. But different angel groups have a different focus. So, for example, in Tauranga, they're very interested in agribusiness, and actual widget, machinery and hardware. Soda, and the group in Hamilton is more interested in, So it's been really hard to find someone who's interested in travel and tourism up until last week. So that was why I was elated to be one of 6 companies representing Dunedin in Queenstown at a travel tourism tech expo with investors interested in. Afterwards, I was, there was about 6 people queuing up to talk to me. So I'm in conversation at the moment. So it's
perfect event for you.
Yeah, right? I was. I was in my element. I was over the moon to be part of that event, and so we're in conversation. So it's a bit early to say what results will come out of that, but I was very receptive to the positivity people coming to the table to come and chat with me, and so I quietly encouraged.
Totally. So looking at your pitch, is there any pitch feedback, good or bad, it can be either way, that's really stood out to you over the last few years that you might pass on to someone else that gets up and pitches to investors? I'm
going to mention something. It's actually not a positive thing, but then I'll come back to the question. So
no worries.
I have had quite a few comments from people saying that they couldn't understand why a woman was in a tech company. I've had really a lot of surprisingly disparaging comments about the fact that I'm a female entrepreneur, and which kind of shocked me, but I kind of laughed it off. Getting back to the so I guess the big moment was actually last week when he said, one of the judges said, look, I think you're sitting on a $50 million company, and I don't know why you're only valuing it at $2 million and you're only asking for $100,000. And so I had to really justify that, because I don't think we actually need I didn't want to overvalue the company, because I think I'd done that at a previous pitch event and had no interest at all. And I thought, oh, okay. So, and then one of the judges said, look, get a loan. So, I guess, it's a formula. What's the problem? What's the customer problem? What's the the solution? What's your market? What's the market? What's the traction? Who's your team? And so it's that typical. It's pretty formulaic, and when you're pitching, with 5, 6, or 7 minutes. But what they're really interested in is how much are they going to make? What's the promise that this company is worth, say, $2 million today, and you're going to sell for $20 million? Like, how are you going to do that? How is that believable? And so you're really building a case around, because that's actually all they really care about, is how are you going to turn the 100,000 into $1 million or 10x their money. They really are looking for a 10x, and that's fine. I'm looking for that as well.
Right, at the end of the day,
I'm the major shareholder, and I'm.
You're the one with the most skin in the game out of
absolutely.
anyone, right? Yeah. Yeah. And as you said, 98% startups fail. So for these guys that are looking at investing in 10 and hoping that one comes off, it needs to be a 10x, 12x, 15x.
And I want to be the one. I mean, we have spent a lot of time and effort, money, understanding our marketplace and our position in the marketplace. And one of the great things about Airbnb being a global company, also in the shared access economy, is it encouraged us to do that and really find, well, who are we serving, and who is our favourite customer.
Awesome. I'm still surprised by that comment about the female tech entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just missing out on so many opportunities as that investor. You're just closing the door. It's just stupid. It's just really naive.
So, and I laugh about.
Well, you've got to, right? Yeah.
But I mean, to be honest, very few female tech entrepreneurs in New Zealand. I've met one other one. Yeah, I mean, there are others in the gaming industry here in Dunedin, and
Zoe.
Yeah, Zoe. Yeah. She's one of my heroes.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's on our board, so
no, she's amazing.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah. Oh, so one of the, I guess, phrases that you use when talking about Look After Me is the shared access economy. Do you mind explaining, number one, what that is, but two, why that might be important for New Zealand? Yes,
certainly. So the shared access economy, or some people call it the sharing economy. Now, that's actually a misnomer. It's not really a sharing economy. I don't share my lunch with you and then, expect you to pay for it. Sharing is sharing. So the better term is shared access. So it's called the peer-to-peer or collaborative consumption. Okay. And so this is the rise of economies based on businesses which are marketplaces where people might have unused goods like ski gear, houses, rooms, cars, rides that they want to sell. And so a marketplace brings together people who want those goods in a trusted way to those who are selling it. So it's the shared access economy, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, will be significant globally. Okay. It's an estimated worth $15 billion in 2015, rising at a rate of 200% year on year to be $335 billion by 2025. Wow. Also globally, China, as in their national policy, included the shared access economy as a national priority. Wow. And that's really changed things quite phenomenally. So globally, it is a recognised phenomena. Here in New Zealand, we've been a little bit slower to embrace it, but there are companies that are emerging, like firstly Airbnb, rooms and houses, Uber with rides, and and then Lime, they're the international companies, but there's actually been a number of local players like My Way for camper vans, Chariot for ride sharing, and so, but Look After Me is the only accommodation, a sort of hosted accommodation using the shared access economy. So we are seen as according to the New Zealand Business magazine, who ran a special issue on the shared access economy when they're looking at who are the key disruptors in New Zealand. We were interviewed as the key disruptor and the pioneer for the shared access economy in New Zealand and leading that. Knowing that is really knowing where you are at for your business stage, because every business that needs to survive needs to understand where they are in the stage of that particular industry. So DVD, you wouldn't set up a DVD rental company because that's in decline and it's matured, whereas the shared access economy is pretty much at the niche breakthrough end, which gives us plenty of scope. And so
plenty of room to grow. Yeah.
So while we started in accommodation, we're moving into tours, events, and transport. And just sharing transport and meals as well, and so covering the whole spectrum of tourism activities.
Very cool. So one of the things you let slip before is that you're in the process of writing a book. There might have been a few people listening at home that were wondering what the book's about. My understanding from another podcast that you're on is that it's some of the journal writing that you've done as an entrepreneur. Do you mind talking a little bit about the book and what it's all about?
So there are 3 books. The first one is called Secret Diary of an Entrepreneur, and it's the first 10 years. It's from the idea of inception right through to just after we launched the digital hotel, and then my dad died.
Just quickly, it's got a great start from that anecdote that you told before about having the epiphany moment. But
and like the moments of running down the Prime Minister and this, and I've so it's written from my diary. So I'm a journalist in diary, and so what I did in sifting through the content for the first book was actually find all those bits that really made me laugh or stop or maybe go, I didn't, and actually what emerges is this incredibly naive young person who thinks they are going to just, may be an instant success through to, being burnt out and broke and, raising a child and falling, there's a love story all through it too. So Look After Me was also inspired by a 4-day first date on the cycle trails in Otago, and so this staying in people's homes really made me realise how successful this idea could be. So it's threaded through it's a love story, it's a mother, being a mother, it's being an entrepreneur. The second book is very provocatively called Secret Diary of a Millionaire. Now, I'm not a millionaire, but the idea is by the time I've finished that second book, I would have sold the company. And then the idea is that I leave the company in very good, solid... No, I'll probably stay on the board of directors, but the company is really thriving. And then the third book is called Secret Diary of an Entrepreneur. Of a writer. Of a writer. And that's where I take the first books on tour. And so one of the first strategies is to get them translated into Chinese and market them to China, because entrepreneurship, shared access economy, and of course my involvement with their favourite TV show. I only need to sell, 100 million copies at $1 each, and that's $100 million.
There you go. Awesome. So there's a couple of questions I want to end on. One of them is looking back to, I guess, right after you had that epiphany moment. And it's a bit of a hypothetical. If you had a time machine and you could go back to yourself back then and give yourself some type of advice about the process. It could be to trust yourself. We had Alice Marsh on, and she was talking about how she wished she could go back in time and just say, it's going to be okay, trust yourself. It might not be a smooth road, but you'll get there in the end. It could be a particular, technology stack that you wish that you'd gotten on top of earlier or anything at all. But if there was, I guess, one thing that you could go back and give yourself advice on after you had that epiphany moment, what would it be? Yeah,
I think it would be around the actual journey of entrepreneurship, because from everything I'd ever read, the Facebook movies and all that, it made it sound that entrepreneurship was actually really easy. And you just, you set up a business and then you sell it and then next minute you're a millionaire. And I thought that would be my story too. So I think I thought I'd be able to do the whole thing in 3 years. I think if I was to go back, I would say, look, this will take at least 10 years, and it will take every ounce of courage and determination, ingenuity that you can muster, and you will actually have to give absolutely everything to the business and then some. Rather, I think I was dreadfully naive about what it would take, out of my, me personally, financially, emotionally, physically, and, with my personal relationships. It's been a journey, and that's why I'm writing the books to actually, just to pull back the curtains and say, actually, the journey of entrepreneurship is more like this, and mine is a pretty typical journey. Ripped off, burnt out, broke, pivot, investment, or not. It's I think that's more the typical journey, and so that's why I want to tell the story.
That's
and
really
just everything we do is real. Real people, real places, real me, it's just got to be real. I think New Zealanders really want real.
Oh, 100%. And you're right, it is a typical story and we need to get better at telling it. We've just started at Startup Dunedin. Actually, we've got the second event coming up this September. I think it's the 12th. Don't quote me on that. But we've started an event called Takeaways. I don't know if you've seen it, but we've based it off of F-Up nights internationally. And so we get a couple of entrepreneurs to come along and share when it all went wrong. And when it seemed like all hope was lost and they were really down and broken and not in a good place.
Oh, yeah, I've got a good one. Oh, boy, yeah.
So we might need to get you along to be one of the guest speakers for that. But we keep it founder only and Chatham House rules. And it just gives an environment for people to share these sorts of conversations because at the end of the day, like you said, we're all people. And the mental health side of this conversation is really important.
It's absolutely critical, and I really cannot emphasise how critical it is for entrepreneurs, because we actually put a lot of stress on ourselves, and actually that mental health. I've had ups and downs, and that's why I'm very, very focused on my own self-care, because when you have a bad months or season, it affects everything.
Definitely.
And everything,
Definitely. One final question, and then I'll let you off the hook. So what we let everybody do at the end of this podcast is give our audience a message or something to take away. It can be something like you just said, that's, look after yourself, that sort of stuff, or you can go and plug Look After Me, or something that's coming up for yourself. I know you've got an investment round that you're looking to close out, but is there something that you want our audience to take away?
I think your audience is probably other entrepreneurs, and so hang in there. Well, actually, I'm going to pass on some advice from Suze Reynolds, who was the chair of the Angel organisation, and in a moment of desperation, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know why. And she just said to me, she said, an idea will hit an entrepreneur for a reason. And she said, you are the person who has had the idea to help homeowners rent out their spare space and look after people. Don't underestimate. No one else was given that idea. She said, ideas, and it was almost like a spiritual conversation, that there was this idea kind of floated around, and she didn't know anything about my epiphany moment, but she said ideas floating around all the time, and they find people who are receptive and they land on them, and she said it is your duty and responsibility to take that idea as far as you can, because you're the only one who can actually do it. And so in those moments when I've gone, really? I've gone, actually it is part of my personal quest and my journey, and I am responsible and I have to keep going. And I hate for people to miss out on their creative pursuits because I, lost faith in myself, So, it's as simple as that. You've had the idea for a reason, and,
Stay the course.
Stay the course, and,
Fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I've had so much fun hearing about your journey. That concludes this episode of the Startup Dunedin podcast.